place is like a hobby farm, rescue, homestead, place of residence, all wrapped up into one. We bought this place almost like 2 years ago exactly, and it came with a house, 10 acres of land, there's an old outbuilding, a detached garage, and some janky perimeter fencing. And since we've moved here, we have made some pretty significant improvements to the place, I would say, especially as far as acquiring animals and having enclosures for them, fencing, that kind of a thing. We've learned a lot, we've spent a lot, we've upcycled other times, so we've also saved a lot of money too. We're really good at the upcycling thing and reusing materials. I'll show you. But first, here's the backstory. I was 9 months pregnant with my second baby when we finally closed on this place and were allowed to move in. On move-in day, I was 4 days from my due date. So I had 4 days to go until I was officially due, but I just knew that I wasn't gonna make it. My only prayer was like, please just like let me get in the farmhouse first before this baby comes. Well, be careful what you wish for, because literally the day after we moved into this place, the very next night, I went into labor. I had my second baby boy at the local hospital, and within 24 hours, we were back home again. Everything went really well. And so we were back on the farm. Our farm is a few miles from town, and we had no cell service, we had no internet, we had to have all of that put in because we're far enough out that it just wasn't here. I was effectively isolated from my friends and my family. I had the brand new baby, and my husband and I, to be completely honest with you, were fighting all of the time. We were just not in a good place at that time. There was so much stress with the move, with the new baby, with just so many things, and communication was just not thriving. And to top all of that off, you know, my first kid was also a boy. He was barely 2 years old. So another baby, another human baby, literally, that I was dealing with. And I look back on that time and I just want to tell myself that it's going to be okay. It just makes me sad to remember how hard that was, how hard of a transition it was. And I really did. I struggled really hard, but it was also a really special time. I wish I'd given myself more grace, but I can definitely recognize the beauty of everything that happened then, looking back on it now. But we had a farmhouse with a wraparound porch on 10 acres, and even though I sat on that porch and cried through boxes of tissues with my beautiful new baby in my arms, I really was grateful. This was something I had dreamed about since I was a little girl. In fact, when I was a little girl and boys wanted to marry me, I always told them that I would live on a farm with horses when I grew up, with or without them. And so how I convinced my city slicker husband to do this, well, that's just really a story for another time. For now, let me show you around. This was when we moved here. I'll share clips that I took when we moved here, followed by what it looks like now to give you a solid before and after, and then I'll break the cost down. So here's the front of the house, and over here is our garage. Theo is playing pantsless. So yeah, we've got a really awesome detached garage. We can grow plants in there year round because one side of it's all windows. This field runs all the way to the road, way up there, and that's our alfalfa field. So here's a different angle from the alfalfa field. You can see that car just went by. So this whole area we can cut a couple of times a year and bale our own alfalfa, which is lovely for the horses. And then this is the rest of the property back here. So you can see the side of the house over there. Those are some of our fruit trees. And the canal that irrigates our land runs all the way down. So it goes all the way back to that tree line way back there, and then even a little bit further. So this is about 10 acres. So again, the front of the house, it wraps around obviously on both sides. We've got a hot tub out back. And then this fence kind of helps us close off the yard, but we want to take it down and put up a nice fence closer to the road so that we have a bigger front yard. The property runs all the way to the road. This little covered area we're going to use to store hay for the horses. All right, so we've still got this bright, beautiful yellow house, right? Big changes, not too many up here. I started trying to do my own landscaping and the chickens said no. So these flowers were hanging that you see here on the ground, but we did cut out all of those big, bushy, weird tree things, although they're growing back in this corner because I haven't clipped them down. We're still sort of determining if we're gonna extend the front porch or not, but As far as that goes, I would say our next, it's not next on the list, but a potential future project if we're able to save money to do that. So for now, this is just our house, which is pretty cute if you ask me. Hi Lady Bird, there's our guardian pup. Now, if I flip around here, this looks very different, yes? So, you can see where that old fence, the old chain link fence, was essentially where that trash can is and went across there. Might have been, actually no, it was further out into the yard. Regardless, it's gone, right? We pulled that out and we hired somebody, our local business, to build the fence that we have now that encloses our front yard area. And we did that for a number of reasons. Often we build our own fencing and try to do as much as we can, but that was one really big project that we wanted done efficiently, and we were willing to spend the money on that. I will go into costs later on the episode, but I will say that it gave this place a major facelift, just putting up nicer fencing and making the yard bigger. So of course we've got a play structure there now. There were trees, elm trees, grown up through this area here. We have cut those down, but I think we might let them grow back. Elm bugs are a problem. And now, if you take a look at what a difference this is, now here's that old lean-to area that is now our hay shelter. My husband is building sides onto it. That's a winterizing project that we'll have done this year. But we've also built what is now the goat and chicken pen that we've tied in to the back of that. And then over here, this shelter, hopefully it doesn't look too crazy, was for storing hay for our horses that were boarding here, and those horses are now gone, so we have a tractor and our mower in there now. But this is the goat and chicken pen that my husband built himself. We're quite proud of that. Hello Dale, Dale's watching me. And we'll be re-upping on hay, stocking up for the winter here pretty soon, probably in the next month or so, but that's a big difference. So 2 years later, detached garage, still much the same. I'll be putting it to use this year through the winter. That's our old farm truck that we're going to be selling soon. And yeah, so this is much the same, although in 2 weeks we are replacing this fence that runs to that back field. This is going to get pushed further to the edge, to the back part of the garage, this post and the gate, you know, everything's moving that way to give ourselves a little more yard space. And then let me show you what this view from the alfalfa field looks like now. So you can see where we've been adding animal pens over the last 2 years, shelters, things like that. We've improved fencing back there. And now this field area right here is used for rotating horses onto for grazing. This is also part of the field where we board animals when that comes up, although we don't do it often, sometimes. We do regularly check our fencing. We have deer that come through sometimes in a hurry and they jump through these through the fencing lines, and oftentimes we'll pop them. Sometimes horses come through here as well. Our horses, I mean, come up to the fence and they like to kick it and paw some of the wire, and they have snapped wire that way as well. So we do keep a roll of fencing, barbless, we use barbless wire on hand, and my husband does repair that ourselves, but it is an ongoing project. If you know anybody with farm animals and a farm, they will tell you that fencing is always at the top of the list. And now if I walk this way, I'll show you exactly what we've built out. I did not pick up the yard for this episode. Kids live here, I'm not sorry for it. Now, so here's that shelter a little closer up. Here is our donkey enclosure. There's Katie getting up from a nap because she's sleeping. There's her little shelter back there. And then you can see our big stallion Leo, who you guys love very much, over there. Now, this whole area is getting a major facelift in the next couple of months, but that is actually going to be the next episode I make for you guys as far as what's next for the farm. But this is what we've built out. Now this donkey pen here was built by my husband. Back up. Right. So he dug the holes, cemented the posts, pounded the T-post, strung the wire, the whole thing. He's very proud of this enclosure, as he should be. Hi Katie girl, are you showing off your home? There's a second area back there. Back with, you see where that wheelbarrow is. We can close that gate, keep her in here. She also has that area that we turn her out on for enrichment and grazing from time to time. So you can see the gate's open now. She has the opportunity to go in there if she wants to. That area over there is enclosed by panels on this side. This side, behind that shelter, my husband did cement post and string wire T-posts in between. Leo's pen here is always open for him to go into that other field, but it is just panels for now, and that again is going to be the next episode that I explore that with you. But, so, this is a major thing that we built when we moved in. Now let's talk about this pen and how much it cost my husband to build. You can see where we have somewhat funnily extended this to make it taller. This is the original height here and down. That's no climb fencing. And then our little mini goats, our Nigerian dwarf goats, realized they could jump that fairly easily. So we've extended it with chicken wire, PVC pipe, and zip ties. Talk about doing things cheaply and upcycling. That's one way to do it. Here's another view of the fence for you. And it's gonna wrap all the way around here. If we want more goats, we'll probably build them a bigger area, but for now this is great. Here they are. They love that old bathtub in there. I know it's an eyesore, but they love it. And here we've reused again this hay storage for storing a tractor and our riding mower. This gate was upcycled, was given to us by somebody, so when we had hay in this area we could close the gate. Yes? Do you want to say something? Yes, we have a gate there because we would let donkeys in our yard and they would want to eat. Yes. You're a funny girl. What do you say? Is it almost dinner time? Now, this part of our front area, I don't think I have videos from when we moved in, but it essentially looks the same. It's irrigated, it's grass and some weeds. Probably needs mowed one more time before winter sets in. And then over here, we have started the compost area next to where those old hay bales are. Those red panels there on the ground are going to be cut down and scrapped. For now, that's where they are living until we do that. This part of the yard, we've decided this year is going to be our garden. I aspire to have a very large garden, and I think it'll be just perfect over here because we get lots of sun, lots of shade in some areas. It's irrigated, so if I wanted to do a garden in the ground, I could, though that might be tricky because of where we live. It'll depend on the soil quality, but we might also just incorporate raised beds as well. We can do both. Nobody says it just has to be one or the other, but we will need tall deer fencing for keeping the deer out. We have lots of deer in this area, of course. So I have an idea of what I want that to look like. Again, it'll be a matter of saving money, budgeting, and doing as much as we can ourselves. Here we are from a different view, coming in the front gate. Our tree goats. Hi, boys. Hi, goaties. This front fence cost us $6,059 to outsource to a local fencing company, including the large gate and the no climb fencing added. No climb fencing, it means like the really skinny, like rectangular shape in the fence. You can't see it really well from a distance, but it keeps our animals from getting out and, to be honest, the children too. So it's kind of a win-win. It cost us around $200 to build this goat and chicken pen, and we used plenty of upcycled materials like the corner posts, T-posts, the gate was something that we already had laying around, the PVC pipe was laying around, we just cut it up, the spools for enrichment that's in their pen, we just kept an eye on Marketplace and picked those up for free. So there's a lot that you can do with things that are already laying around if you have a farm. If not, Marketplace is a great place to pick up free stuff. The chicken coop was free when some of the chickens were given to us, and my husband has made improvements to it from our own resources around the farm again. The goat shelter was $300 and built locally. It cost us $900 to build this donkey enclosure. My husband built this himself with help from a friend with an auger to dig the holes for the cemented posts, also free labor. For comparison, we did get an estimate for this enclosure from a local business, and it was going to cost $3,780. And again, it cost us $900. So this is a great example of how much money you can save when you build something yourself. The donkey shelter was $600, and that was built locally. We bought it from a person down the street. Now, I will say that my husband added the porch. He thought that they needed a porch area extended, so we did that, and I just think it's really cute. It cost us $200 per spool of barbless wire for fencing repairs. So the fencing, most of the perimeter fencing was already here, but it was in really rough shape. And so some of it we had to just pull down and trash because it was all cut up and had been spliced multiple times and fixed multiple times. So we have had to buy spools of barbless wire. A big spool is $200, but that goes actually pretty far for us, especially when we're just using it for fencing repairs. Again, that lasts a while, but it depends on what you're building. It cost us $0 for our compost area. We used all upcycled materials around the farm and even free old hay to help build the compost itself. So this is mostly pallets that have been put together, again, that you can get free on Marketplace. Sometimes people sell pallets, but I would encourage you to call local businesses who you know might have them, because generally they're just giving them away. It cost us $0 to put walls on this existing structure here that we now use for hay storage. He is using wood that we have found for free on Marketplace, or that we've taken apart from other things in other areas on the property to use again. So obviously this is still a project that we're working on, but it will be completely enclosed with wood that we have just upcycled. It is currently costing us $3,200 for our next fencing project that is only phase 1 of a massive undertaking that you're going to also learn about actually in the next episode when I talk about what's next on the farm. But this is primarily where they're going to be building. It's hard to say how much the garden space will cost us because it depends on how much we have to outsource. While my husband is fantastic at building fencing, with 3 babies, our time is more limited now than it has ever been before, and especially in the face of winter. If we built it ourselves, garden beds included, I estimate it may cost around $2,000 or $3,000. That's for the deer-proof fencing and garden beds, but that's only if we built it ourselves. That's without the cost of purchasing the starters, plants, seeds, soil, and so on. You can imagine it would be double or more if we hire that out as a project, but it's not next on the list, so I haven't hashed out those details yet. Now, regarding our farm's a little different because we don't raise animals to eat them here. The goal of our place is to give all animals, a soft and safe landing. So we're not going to eat you, we'll save you, come here, we got your back kind of a thing. Sometimes they stay with us as permanent residents. If you've been here for a while, you know who those animals are and why. Other times I find them forever families. I share a lot about our animals, obviously, and sometimes about the family too, but I regularly get asked, whether it's like local, like people I actually know in real life, but it's sometimes online too, people will just say like, but how much does that cost? Because my husband and I, like, we're, a youngish couple with little kids and this whole spread, and that I feel like this homestead idea is becoming really popular as people return to their roots and we start questioning things that don't really add up anymore, right? So we have interest in growing our own food again and taking care of ourselves and being self-sufficient, which I think is fantastic. So that's also why I wanted to put out this episode to answer that question, how much does it cost? But because where all of the things that I kind of mentioned at the beginning, kind of a hobby farm, kind of a homestead, kind of my place of business, but it's also where we live, my answer is it just kind of depends, especially regarding the animals. A lot of our animals have been surrendered or given to us, and they're coming to us in really rough shape. So there's cost there to rehab and help them get better. Others I've had to pay for to get them to safety, even though they weren't healthy, thriving animals. It was you pay to get them there or they're going to be slaughtered. And obviously that's what part of my mission is to intercept those animals as much as possible. And other times the animals just needed a home when their owners couldn't have them anymore for whatever reason. They were surrendered to us. I have never paid for chickens, but you can buy chickens for usually less than $10 each. I mean, they're honestly pretty cheap. Our chicken's free range and they forage for themselves as far as food goes, but we do supplement them with chicken feed. It's about $8 for a 25-pound bucket from our local co-op, and you do have to buy like the bucket when you start this process, if you're going to buy from them, I mean. So it's a little more initially, like probably $20 or $30 up front to buy the bucket itself as well, but then you fill it up for about $8 after that each time. And the chickens also eat our kitchen food scraps. Generally, we have a mineral block sitting out for them as well that they can peck at as they feel like they need it. But chickens are honestly really affordable. You just have to make sure that you're allowed to have them if you live in town. And if you don't live in town, you want to make sure your chickens are well protected from predators. Otherwise, they're not going to last for very long. I bought our 3 Nigerian dwarf goats, they're all boys, from a friend who wanted them to go to another family. She let me have all 3 of them for $100. But they usually sell for somewhere around $100 each, maybe more. More if they're girls for sure. They are just for fun. My kids love them, I love them, and they just really make our farm feel complete as far as that goes. So they are just for fun. They don't actually produce anything. The goats eat grass hay, which we purchase for $8 per square bale, but this would vary depending on where you live. They are also supplemented with goat feed, which is like $20 per bag at the feed store. And our goats also are turned out to forage, and so they'll eat lots of weeds and plants that they find around the property, and they'll eat lots of things that you don't really want them to eat too, so there's that. Now, our donkey came to live with us when one of her owners passed away, and the other owner was downsizing, so she was free. They just let us have her. She eats hay, which is about $8 per bale, and she also grazes and forages in our pastures. Now, our stallion was a whole fiasco. He actually has 3 YouTube episodes dedicated to his story, so I won't get into that now. I paid $775 to save him from shipping to slaughter, and a whole lot more than that to get him here, and then a whole lot more than that to get him recovered. He eats hay, a whole lot more than a regular size horse. Again, that's about $8 per bale, and he grazes and forages in our pastures. He's also supplemented with a soaked alfalfa cube mash once a day for breakfast, and a bag of alfalfa cubes is going to set you back about $12. Again, he eats twice as much as a regular size horse. One of our horses I saved from the kill buyer at a local auction for $900. One of them was surrendered to me extremely skinny. One was given to me by a friend who was downsizing due to cost. In the summer, the horses sustain themselves on grazing and foraging in the pasture. However, they require hay supplementation in the winter, again about $8 per bale where I live. And one will also be fed a soaked alfalfa cube mash because he needs the extra nutrition to maintain a healthy weight. Now, horses and donkeys require regular farrier care. The cost for my farrier is $65 per equine. However, my stallion, Leo, costs double due to his size at a whopping $130. And I also have to have him sedated by a vet. And so that usually sets me back another $200. It is extremely expensive. They are trimmed every 6 to 8 weeks. So that's about $390 every 6 to 8 weeks, though we have them staggered for trims to spread the cost out. And again, that's not with the extra stuff that Leo costs me either. Each horse shelter that you see around here, they're about $1,200, all materials included, and put together ourselves. So you can imagine if you had to outsource that labor, that it would cost more. The thing is, there's a whole lot more to the cost of having horses, and donkeys too, equines in general. And after I started making the list for this episode, I just sort of decided that it probably needs to be its own episode if you're really interested in that number. So let me know in the comments if you want the full cost of what it is to own and properly care for equines like horses and donkeys. With enough interest, I will happily, maybe somewhat sadly, put together that number for you and then hide it from my husband. Not really. He knows what he got into when he married me, but sometimes the cost is significant. All right, we're gonna get really detailed here. Our older dog was rescued for $25 in Texas. He was literally on sale. They were just trying to get rid of dogs, so we picked him up as a puppy. Our guardian dog was purchased for $200, and really the only reason I spent that was to get her out of she was living in the back of a horse trailer. It was really sad. So I spent $200 to get her here. They eat dog food from our local pet store, and it's about 60 or 70 bucks a bag. If you want to know more about Ladybird and the whole back of the horse trailer thing, she's got a couple of episodes out, and then I'm also working on some more of me training her to work with the animals, so you'll see more of her around here. It was necessary to put in a sport dog fence, which is basically a perimeter electric fence for our dogs after we brought Ladybird home. The cost of that equipment was around $460, and we installed it ourselves. I've had friends say that they looked at
perimeter electric fencing through companies, and where we live it was several $1,000s. So to spend $460 on something like that was very reasonable to us. My dad passed away almost 1 year ago from when I'm making this episode, and I brought his tractor home a few months later. I'm officially buying it from his estate, though we don't have the cost of that yet. Everything is still in probate. It looks a little rough, the seat's torn up, and it was exposed to elements for a long time. It's very used, but it seems to be mostly cosmetic issues. We haven't had it formally evaluated. I think this tractor brand new would be $6,000, but I haven't found this exact model, size, year, that kind of a thing. But it runs well and it works great for what we need it for. If you live on a farm, generally, depending on what you're trying to do, you're probably going to want a tractor, and that's the reason I include it in this episode. And our riding lawnmower was purchased from a friend, and it was used. We purchased it for $1,200. Again, when you have a lot of property to manage and landscape, the riding lawnmower has really saved us, so finding a used one was awesome.
Oof. This episode was painful. I think I got most of the big things without getting too caught up on smaller things. But the problem with smaller things is they do add up, right? And smaller things meaning like tools, things like that you would actually need to build, to make repairs.
What I've learned is that the more you can do yourself, the better. You will save a lot of money. But on the other hand, you have to ask yourself, what is your time worth? Because it is costing you something, even if it's not money. For my husband and I, with a newborn, a toddler, and a preschooler, we prefer to devote our time to our children right now, so that means we have less time for farm projects. For example, this upcoming fencing project I mentioned earlier will be completed far sooner and far more efficiently by hiring it out to local labor than by trying to do it ourselves, especially with a laundry list of things to do before winter sets in as we winterize and do those kinds of things. So it's definitely worth it to us to outsource that project. But again, what is your time worth?
My husband had a lot of tools before we ever moved here, so that did help a lot. We didn't have to purchase everything from the beginning. YouTube has been invaluable in teaching us things like repairing and building fencing. We didn't know how to do that when we moved here, and the cost of our labor is free, right? The cost of hiring out is going to be significantly more for things like that. But you can pretty much find an answer for everything on YouTube. Thank you, YouTube. We keep an eye on estate sales when we need certain things, or marketplace where we know that we can buy it like used and for cheaper than brand new. My husband loves grabbing free stuff from marketplace. Like, it's kind of a problem because then we start hoarding piles of things that we don't need, but like maybe we'll need it one day. I think if you have a farm, you probably can relate to that. But things like pallets and lumber, like those are valuable items for a farm. So if you can find them for free, or somebody that just wants to get rid of them for really cheap, it's a good idea to acquire those things because you know you're going to need them eventually. They're not going to be aesthetically perfect. This is not an aesthetic kind of farm. This is not a super fancy $1 million property. But if it's functional and works well, like, who cares? And we also ask for help from our friends and our family to do projects and things, like when our family comes and visits from Texas, and our friends help us quite a bit too. The truth is, we absolutely love having this farm. We love living on the farm with our animals and our feral little humans running around. My goal for this place is truly to continue growing. We want to keep building, we want to keep improving, and we want to keep rescuing a whole lot more animals and probably humans in that process too. So in the next episode, I'll be sharing what's next for this farm, along with how I make money, which is something that I haven't shared often before, but I do get that question a lot too. Spoiler alert, all of these things are intertwined. Really, they are with this place. And the next big projects we have on the list, which I'm going to be talking about in the next episode, all include things that are going to help us make more money from our farm, which then helps us rescue more animals. And again, that's ultimately the goal here, and that's why I started sitting down and making episodes on YouTube, which is a fantastic way to generate income if you can. So please like and subscribe while you're here. You hanging out with me in this time, you watching my farm animals, all of those things we hope will continue to generate income so that we can rescue more animals, so that we can do more good in the world and share with you about it. I love hearing from you in the comments, so please let me know below what else I can peel the curtain back on and show you while you're hanging out with me. Anyway, I'll see you soon. I gotta go feed dinners.